All right, welcome in everybody to episode 8 of Race Central Unplugged. It's me, Sid the Kid, right next to longtime motorsports insider Kurt Hansen. Kurt, what is up?
This is number 8. Oh my God!
Yeah,
this is like having a real job.
yeah.
And welcome back. You look absolutely beautiful. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but what the hell? Because it is unplugged. Sid the Kid was knocked down pretty hard, and it's good to see her recovering nicely. She played heavily injured last Friday on the radio show on ESPN Radio here in Denver, which you can listen to too on AM 1600, FM 104.3, The Fan HD2, and always streaming at racecentralmedia.com. You can also obviously find the podcast there and all the great episodes of Race Central TV, which you can see anywhere. You can pretty much hear my voice, but that's good to see you, Sid. You look good, and look forward to seeing you in the studio. The studio, yeah, on Friday. So you're the boss. Let's. What are we doing here?
Yeah. Oh well, yeah. I just like to say I got COVID, and it was just the worst. But I'm doing better now, although I'm still dealing with some of the symptoms. So bear with me throughout this 8th episode of Race Central Unplugged. But regardless,
but I have to say this: it hasn't affected your beauty.
Okay, well, thank
or
God.
Your talent.
Yeah, but okay. So I was still producing the show our last show, episode 7, and boy, I was not looking too swell that day. But regardless, we're getting better. Why don't we just jump right into it? My favorite part of motorsports, which is Formula One. So can you tell us about the Andretti drama in F1?
I didn't know your favorite was Formula One.
Yeah, I like it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of cool. Okay, we have all those guests on Race Central on the radio, so that's a good thing. And I want to say something quick. The whole reason we started this was to kind of do weekly updates and stuff and make it very entertainment based, very lighthearted. A lot of ho-ho. We've mixed in a little bit because Sid has vast knowledge in the pop culture category. But this week's going to be a little bit more serious as we move in to the second segment. But if you want to go on a Draymond Green rant or something, it's okay too. This we talked about last week in the program. This Andretti Cadillac partnership to Formula One is really taking on a kind of a life of its own in the sense that, as I said a week ago, I think Michael is trying to build a large enough and strong enough platform that Formula One cannot ignore him.
Yeah.
And boy, if that was his intention, it certainly has worked.
How has he done that?
Well, I'll get right to that. It's a good question.
Okay.
But I also mentioned last week what engine would be in the car. Well, as you know or may not know, Michael Andretti is a Honda team. Honda, under the Red Bull banner and badging, has won the World Championship 2 years in a row with Maxi Axe. So could it be, and I don't remember what they call the engines, RB10 or whatever, Red Bull 10, whatever, but could it just be a rebadged Honda that has, and this has happened many, many, many times in the world of motorsports. I know we used to do it with oil manufacturers where the juice in the car isn't the same as the label on the can, if you know what I mean, for sponsor reasons. Hello, Pennzoil. So could this be an RB10 with Cadillac valve covers and some Cadillac stuff on it, and Cadillac on the car, the Mazda, actually the Formula One, the Formula Atlantic Championship a few years ago was underwritten heavily by Mazda. So they took Cosworth motors and rebadged them with Mazda heads with their logo on the top and valve covers, but it was basically a Cosworth.
Yeah.
But it was because Mazda was writing the check. They wanted to say Mazda on the valve covers. It makes complete sense. So how has he created the firestorm? Well,
okay. Can I say something real quick? That reminds me. Sorry, but Tiger Woods, he's like a Bridgestone. Bridgestone sponsors him, right? The balls. So he plays a Titleist Pro V. He plays a Titleist ball, but it's a tieless ball, but they just put Bridgestone on it.
Oh, yeah. Rebadging is very, very, very popular
Yeah.
in all worlds.
Okay. Wow.
Oh, yeah. It's a thing. Yeah. If a Titleist is by far the best ball, but he's sponsored by
Yeah.
Bridgestone, they're not going to position their highly paid, sponsor favorite son in a situation with inferior merchandise. I mean, a lot of people say that Tiger made Nike, and that maybe back in the day it was rebranded Nike stuff. I don't know. I don't really care. I love golf, but it's very so that's a very good point you make, Sid.
Yeah.
But
anyways, so they put Mazda on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's and it's they put Mazda on the Cosworth, the 2-liter Cosworth. So, and then they started having a lot of motor issues, and Mazda didn't like that because they're like, "Oh yeah, your Mazda blew up." Well, no, not really. It became a real problem. It really did. And there was one particular engine builder that was really good, but took on way too many clients at one point, and their quality control went down the pooper. But so Michael has stirred up a lot of stuff, and now the president of the FIA, who initially was backing him, has made some comments that, and I don't want to take an hour to go through this stuff, but has made some comments that maybe now aren't quite so warm and fuzzy. Toto Wolff, who is the president owner of the Mercedes Formula One team, with now, of course, 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, a Denver Bronco owner. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
How's his Broncos doing? Hey, Bronco fans, let's hide. I'm not a Bronco.
Hey, you know what? They're making changes, though. You got to give them that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like, yeah, they're going to put hopefully new diapers on the kids. Not, I have a bad joke. I won't tell it. But
hey, this is Race Central Unplugged. This is Unplugged.
Yes, that's right. So what has now happened is Toto Wolff has come out and said that most of the teams, the paddock, who knows really, have voiced to him that we don't want anything to do with Andretti coming to Formula One with Cadillac backing or a rebadged Red Bull, Honda, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And said the other day, because there is an American-owned team in Formula One, it's Stewart-Haas, which is Tony Stewart, and Gene Haas Automation. Obviously, they own a NASCAR team. They own the Haas Formula One effort. And everybody thinks that, Toto said this, that Gunther Steiner is a clown. And boy, he was good entertainment during the Netflix series Drive to Survive. But he's definitely unplugged. But they don't really take Haas seriously. Haas competes for, a good finish is 7th to 10th or something like that. And they struggle, and they don't really have all the money they need. And so it's kind of cute to, according to Toto, those cute little guys over there with the clown running the show. So, but I read between the lines, have been in this so long. There's a lot of bashing and backstabbing that goes on in Formula One. It's just part of the game.
Yeah.
It could be serious posturizing. To kind of shade is, I guess, the cool phrase now. I just say throw dirt on the Andretti effort. But it's getting a lot of news. And like the old saying goes, no press is bad press, just don't get my name wrong. So there's a lot of attention to this deal, and it's hard to know where the true smoke or fire or bullshit begins or ends. But as being commented, because Netflix is going to go on with their Drive to Survive series, that they're saying, I don't know what episode this might fit into, but it's made for TV, Formula One, Hollywood, stirring the pot, backstabbing stuff, and it'd be great entertainment. But it's definitely got attention. Where this all goes, who knows? It's but if Cadillac and Andretti and those guys were desiring a massive amount of attention, I would say, especially as it relates to Formula One and maybe on the very high level, the halo level of global motorsports sponsorships and and involvement is getting a lot of press. We'll have to see where it goes. But I love Toto Wolff calling Steiner a clown. I think that's quite hilarious. But I did say a week ago too, boy, if they can get this deal together. I was talking with a contact of mine in Las Vegas. It looks like I'll be in Vegas for the Formula One race, maybe doing some live streaming stuff. And I mentioned to him, I said, can you imagine a team with that kind of backing and power with an American driver? Now, we don't know if that's going to happen. Formula One and the FIA may say, hey, like we talked about this last week, fine, we'll let you play in our sandbox, but we're going to pick your driver. So there's a lot of guys that are, Formula 2 superstars that want to get into Formula 1. There's a lot of, my God, Daniel Ricciardo is the number 3 driver at Red Bull now. So if something happens to either their lead drivers, he can jump in the car. But here's a guy that's been, a stalwart in Formula 1 for 10 years, and he's sitting on the sidelines hoping to get a ride. Who knows? FIA could come and say, fine, you want to play, we'll put you in, but we want to have a driver that already has a super license and we know has the talent. Ergo, put your car on the grid, but a Daniel Ricciardo or like in kind could be the driver behind the wheel. I don't really care. Okay. I want to see it play out, but I wouldn't mind being in, and I know Michael a little bit. I raced Formula Atlantics with him way back in the day. And I see him at all the races and say hi. So, I would love to run him down and do an interview with him.
We got to get him on the show.
Pits. I think with everything going on right now, I don't think Michael. Everything's coming through a press, a presser and a press agent, which is good. You gotta monitor the flow, and all it takes is one simple word to be misconstrued. Again, you said this. We live in a soundbite world. You can take anything in this show or anything I say on ESPN Radio on Fridays from 3 to 5 or in Race Central TV and soundbite it any way you want to make it fit your narrative. And that's we got to be very, very careful with that. So, my God.
So what's the overall, I don't understand. What's the problem? Why don't they want Andretti in Formula One? Like, what's the overarching reason for that?
So I think, frankly, and they're not going to come out and say this, but they might be a little intimidated. There is another thread that says the Andretti name has huge global impact and implications.
Yeah.
Cadillac, one of the wealthiest car manufacturers in the world. The desire. Formula One loves America, but they'll never really come out and say that. But just by them adding a third race this year in Las Vegas, and for them it's all about the money, but that tells us a lot about how they need and want the American marketplace. Because, oh, by the way, last time I checked, we're a pretty big country, and we got a lot of money. And people are out spending money like crazy. And for people who don't know, marketing partners, sponsor partners, 71% of the time, a fan, you, me, the tens of billions out there, buy products associated with motorsport and the teams that they love and support and the drivers they love and support because they feel in their heart that they are supporting the driver and team that they so passionately love. So that's Domino's Pizza. That was huge when they signed Al Unser Jr. way back in the day in IndyCar. And I was one. I'm a living example. I didn't even like Domino's. It was really pizza. But I'd get off work on Sundays and get a freaking Domino's pizza and run home to watch the Sunday afternoon IndyCar race and eat Domino's pizza because it was on a little Al's car.
Yeah,
I could go through millions. It's just in our brain. It's how our brain works, and it works. So when a manufacturer. Who knows how they expand this partnership and other people they bring in of global importance that they know that people will buy products 71% of the time because they're on the driver's suit or the car of the guy that they love so much and the sport they love so much. That's why.
Okay. Well, more to come on that. I'm sure we'll be talking about that a lot. We're running out of time a little bit here, but I think we should quickly talk about Roar Before the 24 and the amount of cars, record number cars that are set to hit the track there at Daytona.
Yeah, and so that's just a couple weeks away, and the Roar Before the 24 is a real good measuring stick for for fans and for the series, and especially this year, IMSA, International Motorsports Association, to see how their new GTP category with the hybrids are going to work. Will there be supply chain issues? Will there be issues? But I mean, they have their GTD class has more cars than ever. I mean, it's going to be like I-25. It's 6 o'clock in the evening out there at the World Center of Speed, because it's a lot of cars, and the closing ratio between the P cars and the slowest category. Literally, I've had drivers tell me this. As you come up on the banking at night, you might see these tiny little speck headlights. Boom, they're by you. And when a P car passes another slower car, or slower, or the slowest cars, the closing ratio is football field a second or 2 seconds. And the little fleck of headlights you saw in the rearview mirror a second ago, the whoosh when they go by you is like having a fighter jet pass you in your Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
So it's in night's the most dangerous time, very dangerous, especially because a lot of gentlemen drivers or paid drivers, they put them in the car in the evening, and they're not quite as skilled as maybe they should be. It's been a big topic, but nighttime is very dangerous, especially if it's rainy. And but it's going to be good, man. It's going to, it's twice around the clock or at the end of the month. I'm a huge sports car fan. I'm very excited. I think you can watch some of the stuff on the IMSA website streaming for the weekend of the Roar for the 24. And then, of course, they qualify. They have six practice sessions, and they qualify for the twice around the clock for the next weekend.
Yeah. And so when is that supposed to be?
I believe the Roar is a week away, and then the 24-hour race is right around the next weekend. It's the last weekend in January. I mean, where the hell did January go? It's the 12th now. Yeah, I think the Roar is. I can't count. That's why I talk for living. It's just around the corner, as we say in our business.
Yeah.
I'll look it up. During the break to be sure.
Okay. All right. Well, speaking of break, we're going to head into a break now. And when we come back, we'll hit on a couple other topics, but one in particular, which is pretty sensitive, that we've kind of been thinking about and talking about on Race Central on the radio. And we mentioned a little bit, or you mentioned a little bit in episode 7. So everyone stay tuned for the next segment, and we'll be back right after these messages.
Hey folks, Race Central host Kurt Hansen here. Welcome to the newest addition to Race Central Radio, TV, our events, and all the cool stuff we do. It's the audio-visual podcast produced by the ever-charming Sydney Corra. Hey, when it comes time to do commerce, support the people that support us. PDA Road Gear, the oldest radio shop in Denver. It's where all the pros go. They've got lifetime warranty. Also, for a limited time, get their super cool radar detector. Never pay for a speeding ticket again. They do it all. Don't trust me. I'm trying to sell you something. Contact Guy and his guys at pdaroadgear.com.
All right, everyone. Welcome back into the second segment of Race Central Unplugged. Kurt, let's just jump right into it. Speaking of Rolex 24, the World Endurance Championship is sort of having the same response there with the amount of cars. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so a lot of people call it WEC, and a very good friend of mine, Tony Calderon, was the co-promoter of an event in Mexico City a few years ago, and the Latino culture is racing crazy. It's great to see. Whole countries. In the Mexico race, the whole country came basically. But yeah, WEC, our World Endurance Championship, 38 to 40 full-time committed cars. It's shocking because the budgets it takes to run, especially now in this country with the hybrids in GTP, these are huge budgets. I'm not going to go and say they're Formula One budgets, but this is big dollar racing. Obviously, the European community and the European economy is responding, and that's a lot of cars and a lot of great racing. And we look forward to bringing you highlights for WEC on Race Central TV this year.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, more on that. Kurt, you're a big sprint car fan. Kyle Larson and Brad Sweets in their High Limit Sprint Car Series.
Yeah, now this is sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Sid. This is interesting because we sort of have a series like that in SRX, Superstar Racing Experience with Tony Stewart. But these guys are not, they're not. I mean, some guys they go to a local track and they bring the local hot shoe. So obviously, the local hot shoe is still competing full time in the race series of his choice at that track, and they put him in these purpose-built race cars. But they're not taking somebody right off the grid that's a full-time IndyCar competitor or sports car competitor. And there may be some news coming on the Leah Pruitt scenario with SRX because her husband actually owns the series.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have to get, Don Schumacher to sign off for her to go SRX racing, but we'll have to see. But it's interesting because they're going to run midweek. SRX runs midweek. SRX has a great TV package. I don't know what Brad and Kyle have in store, but it's going to run midweek, so it won't compete. In their press release, as it says, other dirt track racing sanctioning bodies. Read into it the World of Outlaws, because that's where that's where those two guys make big money. Brad Sweet's a 4-time champion, by the way. Competed every lap in the 2022 season in sprint cars, which I can't even begin to ingest because it's such a violent, brutal sport and the equipment takes up so much of a beating. But I think it's going to be successful. From what I saw at the Knoxville Nationals last year, I was blown away. I know, World of Outlaw Racing, sprint car racing very, very, very well. I did not know how many new serious players were involved and how much has changed over the past, a few years. I love airing their content, but basically it's on me. I need to know that as brilliantly as I know the rest of the stuff that we talk about, which is, all the big boy toy stuff. So I think it's going to be successful. I hope they have a TV package. Maybe I missed it. I don't know. I'm not focused on that right now. I'm focused on you and I getting this podcast rocking and rolling, which it is. Thanks all of you for watching. Lots of very, very kind comments, not to me, but about Sid here. And I'm looking forward to I'm going to do a little shameless plug here. Podium Karting and Event Center, February 19th. It's all free to come, win lots of cool stuff. Kart racing, axe throwing, first 100 in the door, get special stuff. You can win lots of cool stuff for the Man Cave. And Sid and I will be there doing TV.
Yes.
And it's going to be a lot of fun. February 19th, Podium Karting Event Center, Denver, Colorado. PodiumKarting.com.
Yeah, it's great to see sort of, I don't know if it's expansion, but new faces and I'd say maybe a expansion in other areas of motorsports like sprint car. Kurt, you've been involved in motorsports how many years?
Wow. If it starts as a spectator, probably, I'm going to paint my age in this deal, but probably as a spectator, between 60 and 65 years.
Okay. So wait a
minute, no, 50 and 55 years.
Okay.
God, I wasn't watching before I was born.
Right. Okay. So personally, I feel like, there's certain parts of it, like Formula One, which have just, they've gotten such an influx of viewers and fans in recent years. How do you feel like the trend overall motorsports as a whole, do you feel like it's become more popular or less popular, or what's kind of like the flow and the trend of at least kind of global, maybe just the American response to motorsports? And do you feel like it's trending upwards in terms of popularity or down?
It's definitely trending up. There was
Yeah.
a little thing called COVID that you learned about
Yeah.
that really affected everything. And maybe I'm because I love all sports. I've played most sports up to college,
Right.
um, but I think racing, in a lot of ways, led the rest of us out of the darkness of COVID. Because I can tell you from personal experience, it was rough. I had it. Plus, when I was having some other physical ailments, not brought on by myself. Thank you, company not to be named.
Yeah.
But and our numbers went through the roof, Sid. We were the only show producing fresh current content during COVID. And
Right.
I think you were on my board many of those Fridays when we were all at home feeding the show
Mm-hmm.
from our homes because we were all locked out. So it was really good for our numbers. It was terrible for monetization, but we didn't lose one client, not one. But COVID put a stick in the spokes, if you get what I mean. I'm
Yeah.
old. That's what we used to do. We used to put a paper clip on the fork and
Yeah.
with a playing card.
Oh, I did
So
that.
yeah. Well, then if you really wanted to screw your buddy, you threw a stick in his spokes and front wheel stopped. Over they went.
Yep.
Yeah. So just look at the car counts. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously I'm biased, but when you look at the interest, there are so many new teams coming into all forms of motorsport, and highly successful teams being sold to highly successful individuals. Kelly Moss comes to mind in the Porsche Cup, with IMSA. I mean, Andretti, and I can go on and on and on. I think it's terrific. A lot of people don't know. Motor racing is the number one spectator sport in the world and in the United States.
Yeah.
It dipped for a while, but all stick and ball sports dropped with them. The TVs, as far as attendance, because the TV product is so good. Why I used to say, you go down to Mile High, you're going to get beat up, jacked up, and stuck up. I mean, why do I want to go down and deal with that?
Yeah.
I can sit on my couch and not have to deal with anybody, and somebody throwing Skittles at me or something.
Yeah.
I'm just over it. So the TV product's so good, but that's definitely a part of the reason you're seeing TV numbers go up dramatically. But
Right.
even the racetracks, World Outlaw Racing is a big deal, but it's kind of, I think it hasn't peaked, but it's kind of hit a little plateau right now. And this comes from my mouth, from one of the top PR guys in the world of Outlaws with a team. But it's like anything. You have this rapid growth, and you got to have a plateau, a correction, whatever it may be. But from what I saw at I-80 Speedway, which they're now tearing down and selling everything, which is sad, and what happened, or the Saturday night race at Lakeside outside of Kansas City, it's crazy, but it's so different, Sid. I don't even know how to describe it. The drivers are different.
Yeah.
The whole feel is different. I love it, by the way, and the fans are very different. But I think peaks and plateaus are going to happen, but I don't see any racing series on the downside. Oh my God!
Yeah.
Look at the money that's being committed, and look at NASCAR going to Chicago for a street race next year.
Yep.
The expense there, and they're bringing a superstar person to manage it. Julie Geis, who was a president at Phoenix International Raceway for quite a few years.
Right.
They hired her away from Phoenix International to come, run the race there for NASCAR in Chicago. Talk about a media. Why the hell would they do that? They didn't expect to sell everything in the world. And Las Vegas numbers are trending. I mean, there's going to be so much money floating around.
Yeah.
I think everything is, it's got its ups and downs, but overall it's just fine.
Yeah. Well, that's good for us. And that kind of leads into our final topic here, which is more of a serious thing, but I think it's worth a discussion. So, speaking of being in the business and being in broadcasting and TV and whatever, what happened with Damar Hamlin and sort of not only the response to obviously like the severity and the gravity of what everyone witnessed live on television. But from that, there's been a discussion about how the media handles that and how broadcasters handle that. And it's sort of been something that's been on your mind, of course, and our mind as a whole, as a show at Race Central. Motorsports is dangerous also. It's very dangerous and very scary. And injuries happen, fatalities happen, and you've got great insight and interesting perspective on how to handle that. Yeah. So what's your observation there?
It's a lot. Wow. So I don't know whether to start at the end or start at the beginning, because they're kind of the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been around this gig for a long time, and that situation with Damar Hamlin was horrible. But I've never seen that happen in my 65 years. Yeah, I'm 65 years old. People say I don't look a day after 45. 65 is a new 45. John Forrest told me 60 is a new 40, so I'm just going to extrapolate a little bit. But we've never seen a player die. Now, I was at a 49er Raider game back in the day at Candlestick when Napoleon McCallum, our running back, got tackled and literally spiral fractured his knee and severed his femoral artery and almost died in the field. I saw that. I didn't see what happened to Teddy Bridgewater, but something like that happened to him. He had teammates that were turning away and throwing up. I can only imagine. I've seen very gross injuries in my years as an international ski racer. One person comes very much to mind. I won't mention her, but she's a multi-time Olympian and world champion. We were free skiing. She broke her leg. I hiked back up the hill to her, and as I took her boot off, got sprayed with blood from a compound fracture in both her bones, the tibia and the fibia. Back in the day, it was called a tib fib. You got tib fibbed. And that was catastrophic. This is in the 70s now. Technology wasn't, and I was pretty shaken. Yeah. And she's still a good friend, and we became our whole family. I mean, so I've seen a lot. Yeah. I think the first time that I witnessed death. Now, the difference in football and any racing is the potential for fatality is if there's 60 cars on the track, it could happen to 60 different guys every weekend. Yeah. If you extrapolate that out amongst all the racers, if there's 1,000 race cars, well, we're not even talking amateur racing. If there's 1,000 cars on the track in a weekend, there's a potential for 1,000 fatalities. If you process that, it really makes you think. But the first fatality I ever saw was when Gilles Villeneuve was killed. I believe it was the Austrian Grand Prix. I think it was 1982. I had just started driving in the Formula Mazda series and was heading over to Buddy's house. And I got there a little late, and he answered the door and he goes, "You won't believe it. Gilles Villeneuve's dead." I'm like, "What?" Yeah. And then saw the replay of the car tumbling through the air, and there was rumors. I don't know what to believe or what not to believe, but that his head was in his helmet. We'll let you kind of go from there. I mean, this is stuff you can't unsee or unhear. Just hearing that alone makes you think about it. I think probably the next time, I'm really having to kind of go back here. Wow, I can remember the first time I was involved in something that really put it right in front of me. And when I say right in front of me, I mean right in front of me. I was racing in the Mazda series in 1985 at Laguna Seca. It was Indy 500 weekend. And a friend of mine named Keith, who's actually from Colorado, I knew him before he went to Colorado. He used to live in California. Was racing, and they have different levels of the racing categories in the Formula Mazda as well. I'm in the fastest group. Of course I am. And he was, and a bunch of guys. I mean, one guy I'll talk about in a few minutes is Jeff Krosnoff, went on to have big fame. Johnny O'Connell, many-time Le Mans winner, I think winningest driver ever in the Corvette program in IMSA. I mean, God, Tommy Kendall, TV commentator, many-time Trans Am champion, and I watched his accident right in front of me at Watkins Glen in the 90s in the Chevy Intrepid, right in front of me, and they really pulled the tarp out and put it over the car to get him out. And usually that, to someone in the know, is very, 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 very telling. But we take the rolling start, and I think on the second row or whatever, or third row, and it was a really cloudy, overcast, crappy day. And we had a lot of weird stuff happen. This was Sunday morning, happened throughout the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The whole weekend just had a weird vibe.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, two cars in front of me touch. One of them is turned sideways and coming straight at me. You're flat out in third gear. You're probably going 100 and something miles an hour. You're getting up through the gears, going over the hill into turn one at Laguna, which was fast and flat, and you had to have stones.
Yeah.
And I duck, and the car sails literally right over the top of my head. I don't know if it skimmed the roll hoop or not. I don't remember. But out of the corner of my eye, I see it slam into the dirt embankment to my right, and then debris going everywhere and more. Because when big crashes happen, you can't, and of course you're out of the throttle immediately. You're trying to figure out what to do, and you can't see, and there's debris. You hear more cars crashing behind you, and we'd had basically about a 10-car pileup. And I was certain that car that went over my head sideways, so the driver's helmet is facing me. He's facing that way. His helmet's, and that car slammed in the dirt embankment behind me, probably 100 miles an hour. Like, I don't know who that was, but that guy's done.
Yeah.
And so they ended up calling the weekend, and we all went to a neat little bar down in Monterey and watched the Indy 500 with, as we know it today, is Spin and Win, with Danny Sullivan, spins as he passes Mario Andretti, doesn't touch anything, and, passes Mario, wins the 500 in a race that everybody thought Mario Andretti was going to win. So that's the first time it was so close to my.
Yeah.
But here's what happens. You have a little box, and you compartmentalize this stuff. You have to. You have to.
Right.
Because everybody reacts differently, whether you're a driver, a commentator, or whatever. But that was when I went, man. Yeah. And I'm like 20 at that time, I guess. And I'm bulletproof. And I've fallen down at 90 miles an hour and downhills in Europe and stuff, and brush myself off, walk away. You don't really process the process, because if you did, you wouldn't ever leave your house.
Right.
You would never drive on the freeway again. But then a guy competed against in Atlantics. I'm just starting to kind of flow back to me. Jovi Marcello. Jovi won the championship my last year in Formula Atlantic. He won the Atlantic Championship, I think, by 1 point over our good friend Jimmy Vasser, who's gone on to legendary fame and everything he's driven. IndyCar champion, kart champion, I think in 96. And I'm at work, and I knew this guy was a writer for the San Francisco Chronicle. And my phone rings at work. I'm like, hello, Kurt Hansen. And this guy, he's a Greek guy, super cool guy. I can't remember his name. And he says, did you know Jovi Marcello was just killed at Indy? I know you knew him very, very well. You raced with him for 2 years in Atlantics. And then I said, yeah. I said, let me kind of get myself together.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'm going to call you back, and I'm going to, transcript this all into an article in the sports section of the San Francisco Chronicle, because Jovi was from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
As soon as I hang up, phone rings again. It's my crew chief for the last 2 years in Pro Atlantics, Ed Nelson, who was a very, very well-known crew chief and car chief with Genoa Racing that, Jimmy Vasser drove for in Atlantics. And he says, dude, Jovi was just killed. I said, I know. He says, I said, I don't. The emotions, you have a conflict. You have the emotion in your heart and your brain, and they're conflicting, because your brain's trying to control the emotion in your heart and what you're feeling, but you have to be a professional. I didn't cry. I just said, yeah, I know. I said, Eddie, let me call you back. He called me from his cell phone. He was at the track.
Yeah.
And he was working with Euromotors, the team that owned the car that Jovi was driving. And it wasn't a high-speed accident, 175 miles an hour or so, which had been Jovi's fastest lap to that point, which is in some ways telling.
Yeah.
But so I did the interview and just just kind of do your thing. I watched Greg Moore die at Fontana, a guy I knew well from Atlantics and Indy Lights. Just trying to think here. One of the worst was Jeff Krosnoff. I knew Jeff really well, because when the Mazda series had a race weekend at Laguna, we had Laguna weekends and Riverside weekends. So one weekend, all the Riverside guys, the Southern California guys would come up. There was like 40 of them, and we 40 guys, and we 80 cars, 60 cars minimum would race. Then we'd go to Riverside, and I knew Jeff very, very, very well. Super great guy, super driver. He's the one that really kind of put Toyota on the IndyCar map. He did all the development with Toyota and the engine and stuff. And I watched his crash at Toronto in '96, I think.
Yeah.
And that rocked me because of the brutalness and the devastation of the accident. Greg Morris was kind of the same way, but in Jeff's accident, he went head first, sideways, much like my Mazda crash, into the embankment, slammed the embankment. The car was destroyed. And here's Jeff sitting in the car, in the cockpit, on the tub, slumped over. All the parts of the car are torn off. And you can see, like we did with DeMar, physically, safety crews trying to revive him, and you see blood on his driver's suit, and you're going, bro.
Yeah.
Head first into a concrete, like a bridge abutment. And what happens? You start putting this all the way into your hard drive.
Yeah.
When you said you wanted to talk about, so I'm kind of having to pause from it because I'm having to kind of Catherine Legg.
Yeah.
I believe it was Mid-Ohio. Slammed into we talked about it last week on the radio show, slammed into the embankment. Same thing. Head first. She lost control of the car. In racing, we do a lot of this kind of stuff with our hands. Lost control of the car. The wicker bill or gurney tab came off the rear wing for whatever reason. No one will ever know. The car lost control. She corrected. And when she hit the grass, it tipped over and she went and then rolled and rolled and rolled and rolled and rolled. I mean, this is a 130 mile an hour or more accident. And I remember, because I remember my wife walking in the room and I'm staring at the TV. She goes, "What's wrong?" I said, "I'm pretty sure," because I'd seen it before, muscle memory.
Yeah.
The worst thing, and Kat and I were really good friends. They flew her out. She was kind of, she was a featured driver. Well, Kevin Kalkoven was her sponsor. He owned the IndyCar series, or Champ Car, actually, Champ Car. And so I did a bunch of exclusives with her here before the Denver Grand Prix, and they flew her out. So I knew Kat really well. I'm thinking, it's like a video game.
Yeah.
And I remember, this was the commentator part now.
Yeah.
I think it was Derek Daly, Jan Bikas. I don't remember all the commentators, but the crash happens. Safety vehicles come racing over, and one of the guys says, "And we'll be right back." And I'm reading through their audio or their audible messaging.
Yeah.
And then when they come back, the two of them stand there with stick mics. I'm like, that's dead.
Yeah, it really puts the the broadcasters, because when you think about a broadcaster, great broadcasters, it's their job, and it's not only their job, but it's just kind of what a great broadcaster naturally does is they paint the picture of the event, and you're with them. You're watching it, yes, of course, and some people enjoy watching sports with the sound off, but ultimately what makes these events so great and such a good thing to watch, and what makes legendary moments, is the fact that you've got these broadcasters, they're taking you through it, and they're giving you stats, they're giving you all the information you need, they're commenting on what's happening, they're relating things that have happened in the past to what's happening now right in front of you. And then when these things happen, it puts the broadcaster in a really difficult place, because you kind of have to navigate your own emotions and think about, okay, how am I going to take the audience through this? Because we just saw something that is so brutal. And it's interesting. Obviously, the most important thing is the safety of the people that are being injured, but it is worth the discussion, and it's interesting to think about as a broadcaster or a member of the media how you sort of navigate that.
Yeah, I think back to the weekend that Roland Ransenberger and Ayrton Senna died at Imola. Roland died on a Saturday. Ayrton in the early laps of the race on Sunday. And when Roland hit the wall and his car stopped, his head was, here's his body. So his head was basically laying below his shoulder. And if you've ever seen the movie Senna, Ayrton goes, oh my God, and he turns away. He knows what just happened. But you don't want to burn it in your brain. It's burned in your brain anyway. But maybe it's burned in as a snippet, not, a docudrama. When did I first? Well, yeah. So this could be interesting. As many people know, Justin Wilson and I were very, very good friends, and his family too. Julie, the girls, they live. A couple good Tiger Woods tee shots away from where I'm sitting right now. And Justin broke his back. I want to say, I think it was Elkhart Lake, Mid-Ohio. And we had a big party for Justin. It was a goodbye Kurt Busch, because Kurt was leaving Furniture Row Racing, which I was very embedded with. It was goodbye Kurt Busch, get well Justin Wilson party. And Justin came, his dad came, and Justin was in a full back and neck harness and stuff. And I don't remember the timing of all. It's kind of blurry, but when Danny Weldon was killed at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, I believe it was 2010, 2011, something like that. It was a season finale. Danny won the Indy 500 that year in a race which our good friend J.R. Hildebrand was on his way to winning, but if not for everything, the perfect storm of everything going wrong at the wrong moment, and he crashes and slides down the wall, and Danny passes him, and that was an underfunded deal. I remember it was sponsored by Rast Jeans, because everybody bought Rast Jeans the next year. It was cool, very cool to have William Rast Jeans.
Yeah.
So here's again like that branding thing. I bought the product because it supported the series, right? So they had Dan start last. I think it was $1 million purse if somebody off the fastest two qualifiers went at the back, kind of like dirt track racing. They would call it invert the field. If he could race if either one of them could race to the finish and win, they get an extra $1 million. Well, it's like early in the race. I was just maybe a lap or two old, and I'm at a very popular place here in Denver on a rooftop bar restaurant. Everybody knew I loved racing, and all my friends were there. And on a massive TV, they have the race. And this starts to happen. I'm like, wait, did I turn away and this is an ad for some kind of state-of-the-art video game?
Yeah.
Does it look like something out of Terminator? And I'm looking at it and I'm going to go, wait a second. This is all real. This is real.
Yep.
This just happened. And Justin was there, and I called him on his cell phone, and I said, I don't want to speculate. He goes, it's bad. And just by the way he said that to me, I went, okay. And all my friends are asking me what's going on. I'm talking to Jay. Well, he says, hey, the drivers are all convening in a few minutes. I'll try to call you back. And in racing, a lot of people don't know this. If they throw a tarp over the car where there was a human sitting in the car, generally that's a fatality.
Right.
They'll never pronounce a driver dead at the racetrack because of the stigma at the racetrack. They always pronounce him at the hospital. And I hang up with Justin. I see them trying to put a tarp over the car. And they're saying, why are they doing that? Well, because now it's a crime scene. So they have to preserve the scene because it's a crime. It's a fatality.
Yeah.
Racetrack or not. And I'm like, and then people are like, well, how come Flight for Life isn't going? I said, there's only two reasons. There's no need to, or he's okay. I will tell you this, too, from a commentator standpoint. And this is what concerned me with DeMar. No news is not good news.
Right.
The longer news takes to get, and the news you want to get takes to get to you, it's not always a great sign. Because usually, driver, like NASCAR, big crash, boom, boom, driver drops a net on the window. That just signifies okay. Everybody goes, okay, he's okay. But safety still goes to him. But then you kind of deal with it from there. But looking at that, I remember, not going to happen. My phone rings 10 minutes later. Vic Lombardi from CBS here in Denver. I used to do a Daytona 500 wrap-up show with him every year, and a lot of racing stuff. Great guy. He says, hey, is what I saw is that real? I said, yeah. And they hadn't said anything about Danny yet. He said, what do you think? Done.
Yeah.
Done. And then the drivers' meeting, the drivers decided to stop the race, cancel the race. They did a one-lap tribute lap to finalize the race, one lap.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Danny goes to the hospital and they pronounce him dead.
Yeah.
Not surprising.
Yeah.
And then I ended up doing a bunch of national radio and TV to talk about that as my perspective. And it was hard. Commentating a race live. I was doing the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb global radio broadcast, which I've done a million times. I want to say it was 10 years ago. And it was a lead story on every major news outlet on Monday morning. They had the two drivers, the driver and co-driver from the Mitsubishi that went off. I was a 16-mile, which is the big loop that goes up the hill into the final stages, what's called Devil's Playground. I'm anchoring the broadcast from there, and I couldn't see all the way down to the corner, but it's the left-hander that comes onto the straight that goes up to 16 mile and that's, the cars are going, even the slowest cars in the group, they're probably going 140 miles an hour up there. And this is just as they come off the turn and start to accelerate. These two guys went off in a Mitsubishi. I heard the crowd and I ran down to the edge of the road and I'm watching this Mitsubishi tumbling and tumbling and tumbling and tumbling through the boulders. And the car is disintegrating. I'm thinking to myself, okay, get ready. I can handle this, no problem. I've seen it before. I know where to go. I know how to do this. And miraculously, they survived. But they were on every major news show. I think they were on the Tonight Show. These guys became major celebrities. But, when I watched that, I'm like, okay,
yeah,
this is the deal. The worst was watching Justin Wilson. His crash at Pocono. A lot of people don't know he wasn't even supposed to be at that race. He wasn't supposed to be in the car. Yep. For a lot of reasons related to the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb that year that a lot of people don't know. I know. And that screwed me up. I don't think you were my producer back then, but it was hard. It took me months. I've seen, man, I've seen a lot of it. And so to wrap it up, so as a commentator, you have to, I want to add this too. So all the commentators that were speaking to Damar Hamlin, maybe I'm going out on a limb, but they don't really know Damar. They don't hang with Damar before the game.
Yeah.
It's one game. They do the game. They go off somewhere else. It's part of the family, but I doubt they've had a beer or a meal with Damar. And that's not diminishing the way they handle it, but as a commentator in professional motorsports, especially if you are a beat reporter or TV guy that covers a series, like I was a Champ Car announcer, I knew what these guys like to eat. I know, I know, their wives are pregnant. I know what week they're on. You are super engaged with these guys every weekend.
Yeah.
And if you're with the series and you're a 36 race series, NASCAR, you're with them 36 weeks of the year. They know, they can look at you and go, oh, wait, stay out a little too late last night. You are compadres.
You're in it.
Mm-hmm. So when it happens, you have to take really good friend, really good race car driver, had dinner with their family, know their kids, know what kind of toys they like, know everything about their lives. And now you're trying to keep a straight face and compartmentalize and tell the world and put a sheen on it until you know.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
the guys that night did it. The guys and gals did a great job. I've been, unfortunately, I have a lot of experience with it. So
yeah.
I would have reacted differently, even if I was doing the football with DeMar, because there's separation, a big difference of separation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not hanging out with DeMar and his wife every weekend, but I could have handled it very well because I've seen enough of it. Those guys have never seen that before, and they did a great job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
but it's a blood sport. It's just the old adage was, why do I go to the race? Not me, but people say, or if I'll ask them, why do you go to the race? I'm waiting. I want to see crashes. Part of the sport. I hope I got that through okay.
Yeah, it's part of it. It's an interesting discussion. It's an interesting angle to look at those horrible things that unfortunately happen in sports, and it kind of puts it into perspective for you. Oh, I think it was Skip Bayless who everyone kind of got upset at him because he had an insensitive tweet, but he was talking about the playoff implications in his tweet and like how are they going to cancel this game when there's so much on the line in terms of the playoffs this year, and everyone was sort of upset about that. Although I think what he said was misconstrued. It is
soundbite.
Yeah. It's just it is. I think what he was trying to say was how we place so much importance on whether it's the playoffs or it's a big race or something, and then these moments happen, and it sort of brings everyone back down to earth. And I think that they've done a great job with this Damar Hamlin situation. And as weird as it is, it's kind of brought people together because it kind of takes away all the controversy and all the bullshit that is involved in sports, all the drama. And everyone kind of has this moment of like, oh, yeah, these are people. These are just real people out there. And real shit happens. And, it's interesting. We're coming up on 40 minutes here. So
I just want to say one thing, too. They did say after all that, too, with counseling and stuff, when players came back to the facility, they had counselors there and stuff. And the hardest hit, the most devastated were the wives.
Yeah.
Because the wives, maybe one guy's wife or a couple guys' wives hang out with his wife. But the wives, because the wives are going to be the survivor of the tragedy.
Right.
I won't go into details on persons, but I can speak very, very, very closely to all that, having been through it, because the wives, I can tell you when I was racing with Champ Car Atlantics, had a huge crash at the Molson Indy Vancouver. I think it was 91 or 2. I don't remember exactly, in the rain. And almost got literally, I was facing traffic, cars, and I'm sitting there in the tub, kind of trying to get my bearings straight and get out. Safety crews can't get out because cars are whizzing by. But it was the final minute or two of qualifying, so guys aren't lifting. They're like, okay, there's the car. I'm going, and my wife sees us on the big screen in the pits, and they get me back to the pits and stuff and everything else. And she says, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see that. I don't want to watch my husband get killed. And even just recently, a couple of years ago, I was at Miller Motorsports Park racing with SVRA, vintage racing. Actually, it was HSR. And going down the front stretch. She's in the grandstand at the end of the front stretch. And in my Atlantic car, I'm down there. I'm going into one at probably 140, 45 miles an hour with cars all around me. When you go over, make a big left, you go over a couple little dips and disappear off. And she's like, I can't watch this.
Yeah.
I can't understand how you love this so much. And what happens if you guys touch wheels?
Yeah. Well, I think that we all, life is short, and I think we should all still do what we're passionate about, but it's a part of sports, unfortunately. But anyways, it's interesting conversation, and thanks for sharing, all of those experiences. I'm sure it's been traumatic, but you seem to have found a way to have dealt with it as best as you can. We're probably going to wrap it up here. We're way over time. Yeah. Well, thanks
There's
for.
a famous writer that once said, the only true sports are bull riding and motor racing. The rest are all hobbies.
Well, that's true. That is what we'll end on. That is motor racing is. I think special circumstances exist within motor racing, and it's very dangerous, and that you take a risk every single time that you get out there. Anyways, thanks to everyone for tuning in to Race Central Unplugged. Again, this has been episode 8. Kurt, thanks for being here with me today. Good episode, and we'll see you tomorrow for Race Central on the radio. That's 3 to 5 on ESPN Denver 1600. Tune in to that, everyone listening now.
And always streaming at racecentralmedia.com. Thanks, Sid. You do a great job.
Yeah. All right, everyone. See ya.